had a chance to visit with when I was in Japan recently. We actually went to lunch. He has lived in Japan for about 20 years. And, of course, he's originally from Southern California. And speaking of great guitar players, he is certainly one himself. He's getting ready to embark on a tour of America. Also has a new album out called Drama, and has a fantastic autobiography, which I read about 95% of. I got about one or two final chapters just at the very back of the book. I did not get a chance to finish off, but it's a phenomenal read. It's called Dreaming Japanese, and it is out now. Joining us live on the show is Marty Friedman. Marty, how are you, buddy?
How you doing, Eddie, man? Great to hear your voice.
You too, man. Welcome. It's weird. I guess this is still your home, right? I mean, I know you live in Japan, but we could still say welcome home, that you're back on U.S. soil.
Yeah. This is my home country. It's always good to be here.
Yeah, man. Yeah. You get ready for NAMM activities? You're doing stuff around NAMM. I was talking to John 5 yesterday. You're doing a show with him, right?
Yeah, we're doing a show together at the Observatory on the 24th, and I'm going to play at Metal Allegiance on the 23rd, and then I'm kicking off my own tour immediately after that.
You have made a little bit of more of a concerted effort in the last few years to play in America, right, Marty? I mean, I know that with your albums and getting over here, you've worked a little harder on getting over here and kind of reestablishing things in America, right?
Yeah, America and the whole rest of the world, too. And, it got to the point where you've read the book, so you know, but things were going really, really well in Japan, but it was kind of at the expense of not being able to play in other places and not being able to really escape Japan for more than a couple weeks at a time. And the longer you do that, the harder it is to get back. So I knew that I was going to have to start cultivating the rest of the world more, and it's just thanks to the fans who've supported me, through all that time, because I've been away from America quite some time. But thank God for these wonderful people who supported me and come to the shows outside of Japan, and that's what keeps us coming back.
And the actual tour itself, like the actual proper first date of the tour, is in Vegas, right? You start, is that 24th
it's
or 25th?
Vegas, yeah. The 25th. The 24th we'll play with John 5, but it's only kind of like a half size of everybody's playing short sets. It's going to be a big show with us, and Nita Strauss is there, and John 5's there, so it's kind of a big, kind of a NAMM type of thing. But the proper tour starts right after that, where we're going to play almost 2 hours and tons of surprises and tons of uplifting things. And I just want to break in and just say how bummed I am about the circumstances that we're chatting by today, because I know that you're a big John Sykes fan, and John Sykes was a big influence to me when I was developing. When you're a teenager and you're developing your sound and what it is you want to do in music. And I just want to say I'm just really bummed out about it, because when I heard the Tigers of Pantang, I was really into the new wave of British heavy metal, and as you know, it was very innovative as far as heavy metal and rock rhythm guitar went, and that was kind of the big signature of it. And I somebody could maybe correct me, but I think that John Sykes was the first guy as a lead guitarist, at least the first guy who was under my radar, who was just playing mind-boggling guitar in that context. I mean, at that time, it was like really cool rhythms, and the solos were just kind of like just your basic regular solos that fit the songs are fine. But when John Sykes came out on Tigers, on the Spellbound album, it was like, this was a game changer for me. So he was like the first guy in that genre that I heard that was like, wow, these lead guys can really take an exciting part of the band sound. And it was an extremely important influence to myself and a lot of the people that I've met over the years playing metal. So I just wanted to say that, and that I wish all the best to his family. And I know that everybody in the world of heavy metal and hard rock and guitar, owes a lot to him. And I just wanted to get that off my chest, because it's really sad to hear that type of thing. He had such great things to contribute.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you said that, and I was going to ask you about him anyway because every guitar player has been talking about him, and he was a friend, and I tried for decades to try to get him to do more, and I was just a massive, massive fan. The Blue Murder stuff, the Whitesnake stuff, the Thin Lizzy, like you said, Tigers. For me, not being a guitar player, I was always just so amazed at the sound of his guitar, the tone, his vibrato, that he had all this flash, but also played with so much feel. And I remember asking him about it once, and he said to me something like, man, he goes, you can get all the gear and pedals and effects you want. He goes, but at a certain point, it's just got to come from here. And he showed me his hand. He goes, it's got to come from your hands. And that was like a really big thing for me to hear from a guitar player because, again, I don't play the instrument. So, but I have so much appreciation for it that, sometimes you can load up all this equipment, but at the end of the day, it comes from the person. Would you agree with that?
Sure. And it's like, he was a simple dude. He's not a dude that lives and dies by effects and strange sound textures. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Some people have talents in that area, which I admire very much. But I think one thing that I was influenced by him, he's just a straight plug-in guy. And like you said, it's just the hands and the sound and the touch and the intention. And so I think at that point it was probably subliminal for me to pick that up. But, he wasn't a guy who relied on tricks. He was a real player's player. And as soon as you heard his solo, the level of the song all of a sudden went up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And at the time I was very, very smitten with that because I loved new wave of British heavy metal. And there's the lead guitar parts were always, for lack of a better word, kind of pedestrian. They were, they definitely weren't at the level of John Sykes. You had to really be a player to be like that. So when I heard him, it kind of opened up a lot of things for me mentally to try to be more like that and try to, when the solo comes, make it an exciting part of the song. And that was something he was doing way, way back, before heavy metal was, popular. So I think he left a big mark on a lot of people, not just myself.
Yeah, no doubt. So I want to talk to you. There's, like you said, you got a lot going on. It's great that you're back. You're here in the U.S. And when we had lunch in Tokyo a few months ago, I mean, you and I spent a lot of time talking about all the stuff we grew up with and all the great rock music we grew up with. So I was really, and we're around the same age. You're an East Coast guy originally. I am as well. And, growing up in Maryland and as you did. I'm reading. I knew when I dug into your book, as far as in terms of musical influences, there was going to be a lot of similarities. We both grew up huge Kiss fans and all of that. But I got to tell you, man, I have so little time to read these days, and I'm telling you the truth. I got your book. You were nice enough to send it to me, and I start. The old proverbial page turner. I loved the book. It's out now. It's called Dreaming Japanese. It's your autobiography. You wrote it with John Wiederhorn, who I know. And Marty, I mean, this is the biggest thing that kind of I don't know if the word surprise. I mean, I know you. I don't know you extremely well, but I know you, and I've been a fan forever. And you always struck me as being a kind of a fairly private guy and a bit guarded. But you are super. This book has everything. You're super candid. There's funny stuff in here. I mean, there's sex, drugs, rock and roll, but it's not exploitive in that way. I mean, tell me about your approach to doing this because. To me, this is probably a side of you and learning about you that most people wouldn't expect.
Well, thank you so much for the compliments. I appreciate it. And you're really right. I mean, I've known you for a long time, and I've known so many people in the music industry, and I think a lot of people would say the same thing. It's I'm very private, not intentionally guarded, but it's really hard to get a read on me because I don't really divulge a lot of private stuff. And it's just not in my personality to do that. But the time to do that, if any time, would be in your own autobiography. So I just completely let everything out. So people are going to be surprised and offended or not offended, or they're just going to not know what to do, because I think a lot of people have a hard time getting a read on the personal part of me, because it's really nobody's business. But when you write an autobiography, that's where you have to put it all in there. And so I'm like, okay, there's nothing that I'm going to keep back. I'm not going to try to make myself look good. I'm not going to try to make myself look bad. I'm just going to say anything that would be of any interest to anyone who might pick up this book, and let it all in there. There's nothing to be ashamed about. Of course, there's a lot of things in there that I'm definitely not proud of, but these are things that happened, and these are things that are true. And if I found it interesting, whether it makes me look good or bad, I put it in there. And a lot of this stuff, especially with band interactions, of course, everybody knew that I was going to write every detail about my experience in the 10 years I was in Megadeth. But I also treated my other bands before that, even my childhood bands, with the exact same candidness, and all of the real detailed things about what it's like to be a band that's not as big as a Megadeth or something like that. So I find that really interesting, and I think that people who want to know what it was like to be me during those, some people say the golden era of Megadeth, and I tend to agree, even though they've done wonderful, wonderful things in my absence. It's really exactly my perspective of how I lived day to day during that time in Megadeth, and I never really ever talked about it, especially after I left the band, because, as you know, I made it kind of a rule to any press that I've done that, I'm not talking about Megadeth in interviews, and I shut people down for it. And during the interview or before the interview, I said, look, let's not talk about this. And so all of that stuff is now fair game in the book, so it's all out there. And I think that saved the book, and it kind of saved my career, too, because who wants to talk about something that happened X number of years ago when you're doing other things that I find much more interesting? So, yes, there's all kinds of private stuff that has never seen the light of the day, and I made kind of a policy that if I talked about this in an interview, I wasn't going to put it in a book. If it's something that you can find on the internet, there's no reason to put it in my book. So it's all basically new stuff, and it's really weird now to walk around and know that people know my private details now.
Your masturbation ritual
really
as
weird.
A kid?
As soon
That
as
one
it
made
came
me
out,
laugh.
it hit me. I'm like, you know what? Now people know this stuff now.
That one made me laugh out loud, and was relatable when you talked about as a kid your masturbation ritual, finding your dad's magazine, the music you put on, doing a big hit on a joint.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm like, screw it, I'm going to put this in there. You know what I mean? And if I was reading it, I would find that interesting, and I definitely recommend that exact masturbation routine to anybody. And it really works well. And
there was a Lita Ford. There was something with Lita Ford in there. Was it a certain Runaway song or something?
There certainly was. That's the cornerstone of the book right there, Eddie. If you get nothing else out of the book, it's the pristine way to bust a nut is in that book.
You should ask Lita for a blurb for the back of the book. I'm honored to be featured in Marty's book.
I'm afraid of what she's going to say if she reads it.
Oh, man. I'm telling you, this thing, I mean, again, I know you. I've known your career. I've known you for a long time. But I learned a lot throughout this book. I learned, and you're right. I mean, most people, and you know this as better as anyone, in America, it's, Marty Friedman from Megadeth. But you don't get the scope of all the stuff you did before and all the stuff you've done since until you dive into this book. So it covers your early bands, whether it was Hawaii or Deuce or Cacophony with Jason Becker. And then, of course, all the stuff you've done and since relocating to Japan and TV and broadcasting and everything. So, you know, I can't recommend the read more highly to people. And one of the things I also laughed out loud about in the book was that you talked about growing up as a Kiss fan, that you actually had a friend that predicted a couple years before it happened that Kiss was going to sell out with Dynasty. Somebody actually had the foresight to see that coming.
Yeah, my friend and I were like 13, 14, and we were just rocking out. We thought Kiss was the coolest thing. And my friend's big brother, who's like 2 years older, which is really important back in those days, he's like, Kiss used to really rock, but they're going top 40. I can see it. It's bebop. He used to say the word bebop. And this band is bebop now, and they're gonna sell out. I'm like, you're kidding. They were on like Rock and Roll Over and Love Gun, which I consider the peak of their career, and the reason why they're still popular now is because that was just such a fantastic era. He says, yeah, I give them another year, watch what happens. And then Dynasty came out, the first single was Disco. I'm like, you bastard, how did you know this? How did you know this? And kids when they're 14, that's the best part of the innocent, that's the end of your innocence, because you see things as you ideally see them, and we just thought, these guys are gods. Nothing could be better than this. And a couple of years older, a couple of years wiser, can see a lot more, above the clouds. And then I had a lot more respect for the guy after that. But, it's all a matter of taste anyway, and it's fun to rethink of those things because they kind of matter now in making music and interacting with fans, and fans look at my career and they say, I like this era, I like the new stuff better, and you have to understand why they like this and why they like that. So it's really interesting to analyze your own experiences about that.
Yeah, it is. And, there's some other stuff in the book that I picked up on as well that I wasn't, again, I could talk to you about it forever because I even took down some notes, and I don't have all the time in the world, but it's just really, really interesting things. Like when you auditioned, I didn't know that you auditioned for Ozzy, and that there was, I guess, some talk about you auditioning for Kiss at one point and Madonna. Did I have that right?
Yeah. I actually did audition for Ozzy, and that's all in there. And I got the call about auditioning for Kiss, but it never happened. Get this, because I was too short. Because I'm only 5'7.5", and now I agree with it. But at the time, I was just crushed. At the time, I'm like, I would be the best Kiss guy, and I would have done it for nothing. And I'm sure Paul and Gene would have took that into consideration. Right. They would have taken that offer into consideration. I would have done it for nothing. I would have played everything note for note. That was my claim to fame when I was like 15. It's like, dude, this guy can play every Ace Frehley solo note for note. And I had all the nuances down. I just loved it. But they asked me all these questions, and I passed like with flying colors until they asked how tall I was. And like, nah, you got to be 6 feet without shoes on. And I'm like, that's not going to happen. But at that time, I was like, wow, that sucks. But now it's like, how stupid would the front line look with two giants and one short guy? So now I understand it as a person who's put together bands and produced and all that. But at the time, I'm like, that's just not fair. That's not fair. That sucks. I can play better than the other guys. But in reality, playing really doesn't matter as much as other things. And so I wrote about that. And Ozzy was a similar reason. I guess I played okay, but it just wasn't a good fit. And that turned out best anyway, because Zach is with the guy who eventually got the gig, and he did such a fantastic job that I understand that he was perfect for that. And even then, they probably auditioned 100 guys after me before they found Zach. So he was absolutely perfect for that. And Madonna never happened because I got lucky and got into Megadeth first, but I was preparing for a Madonna audition and learned a couple songs and all that. Those kind of things are all in there grizzly.
Marty, what's interesting about the Madonna thing is the interest even back then of potentially having a very rock / metal guitar player in that music, because I don't know if you know this, but I know her guitar player who's been with her for a long time, Monty Pittman, and he's a total metal guy. So that's always been interesting to me that she's wanted that kind of a player.
Yeah, I don't know, what he wound up playing with her in Madonna. I've met him a couple times. Super guy, super guitar player. I don't know when he joined, but like at the time, Madonna didn't have like much guitar in her songs at all.
Right.
There's just some stuff kind of in the background, but I was like borderline homeless at the time, and I liked her music, but it was like an open call, just an industry thing where they were just like combing the area for guys looking for the gig, and I was preparing for that, but I probably wouldn't have got that gig, because I looked like a metal dude, and there were probably guys who could play that kind of pop stuff with much more authority than I could. But yeah, I don't know why maybe they were looking for a metal guy, and maybe that's why Monty got it, but he's a stud, man. I totally get why he would get a good gig like that.
Another thing in the book is you talk about your history with Jason Becker and how Mike Varney brought Jason to you, and you were originally kind of like, well, I'm making my own record here. Why do I have to listen to this kid? And then you heard it, and then you started working with him, and then you realized what he brought to the table. I am still in touch with Jason, and I try to help him out whenever possible. I know they auctioned off a Eddie Van Halen guitar, which I helped them push out. I am just amazed at his perseverance and his strength and the people around him and what he can still do today and how he battles. Did you see that trait in him even as a kid before he had this horrible disease?
I didn't see that big perseverance thing. I just saw like this guy who grows at a monumental, like a savant-like level of growth. And I kind of got into some detail in the book about it, but when I first heard his tape, I was not impressed at all. I was nonplussed. I heard it. It was like, well, pretty good for someone who's 16, but pretty good for someone who's 16. It doesn't mean that you want to work with them or buy their records or anything. The songs stunk. His guitar playing was like pretty good for someone who's 16. And really, the only reason I met with him is because Mike Varney from Shrapnel Records was holding the key to my solo record. And, if Mike Varney says, look, I want you to meet this guy, I'm not going to tell the president of the record label, I don't want to meet him, I'm working on my music. Because I got one foot in the grave back then. I mean, I was like, I didn't want to lose my record deal, so I humored him. And even though I didn't like his tape at all, I met him, and I fell deeply in love with the guy the first time we met. And he was just the coolest dude. And even though the material on his tape was not good, when he played in front of me, I could tell he had this limited ability to do anything that someone put in front of him. Like if I showed him one of my unorthodox lines, he could just not only mimic it, but play it and understand it. He wasn't just spitting out a Xerox copy. Even if it was an unusual concept, he could grasp it, play it, and oftentimes play it with as much or more finesse than I did. And I'm like, this is an amazing thing that you can do here, man. He's like, wow. And he was just so modest about it. And then I started throwing more difficult stuff at him, and he was just nailing this stuff. And it wasn't like my stuff sounded like anybody else, because I learned from strange places like modern classical music, Stravinsky, and Persian music, and Egyptian music, and Japanese, Chinese, all that. But he was grasping it. I'm like, man, this dude would be a good guy to have on my team. And even though he didn't contribute much to the songwriting in the first album, in the 1 year between then and his own first album, just 1 year, he was 18 years old, he had written and recorded his own album called Perpetual Burn, which is a friggin' masterpiece of guitar work that in that 1 year's time, I've never seen anyone in the world grow like that. I mean, I was growing, and I'm still growing now, but I grow at like a reasonable mortal person's pace. I grow normally. This dude was making leaps and bounds, and just like, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And so I was just watching this wonderful thing blossom in front of my eyes. And I was just so glad that I had to meet him, because if I wasn't in desperation for my own record to be released, I would have heard the demo and tossed it. I swear to God. So it's just one of those things. You never know where the rough diamonds are laying in your life. You know, sometimes it's just all luck, man.
Yeah. And his story today is still amazing. It's just incredible how he perseveres and continues to fight. As you mentioned, this is really the first time you open up about everything in Megadeth, because in the past you didn't want to talk about it. You even say in the book, when you first toured, you insisted in the contracts that they didn't put former Megadeth or Megadeth anywhere near your name when you went out and did your solo tours and all of that. But I think the way and look, I know Dave and I know David very well, and I think the way you handled the whole Megadeth thing is very fair and very balanced. And, you know, you call out your own stuff, you call out everybody else's stuff, you talk about the good, the bad, the publishing, the writing credit, I mean, the ups, the downs, the whole thing. Was it difficult for you to do that finally? Had you kind of like wanted to suppress the whole Megadeth thing, that you're like, but you kind of knew you had to do it, obviously, because this is your book?
Right. Well, yeah, it's definitely true that even when I first started touring my solo music, which is quite some time ago, I made it an extreme important point within every contract that the word Megadeth or ex-Megadeth is not used anywhere. And otherwise the show is off and there's a fine. And this I took very, very seriously and still do today. It's in every single contract of everything that I do with my solo band. It wasn't difficult to write this Megadeth stuff because I knew that I haven't spoken about it in years, but I know everything that happened in my life with great clarity. I mean, as you see in the book, I stopped doing drugs when I was 17, no drinking, no drugs. So, like, everything is really clear in my mind, the things that happened. There's no blurry periods of time in there. It's all really clear. And so I think what kind of might have made it easier is the fact that I'd written everything after I had played Budokan with Megadeth in 2023. I had, of course, a rough draft and manuscript of the entire book before that, but, you know, playing at Budokan with Megadeth and meeting Dave there and playing it together was a huge, huge load off both of our backs. And it was kind of a love letter to each other, a celebration of the history that we have together, and a huge thank you to the fans who didn't get to see that in you know, when it was originally booked and sold out. So it was kind of very therapeutic to do that show, and it was like just taking a huge dump. You know, people put importance on certain things. You know, it's only one show, but as you know, and a lot of people who know me know, Budokan is a very, very big. It's kind of a landmark in my life as a music fan and as a music player. And every time that I play there, before playing with Megadeth and since, it's just a big deal because, you know, it's one of those little kid things. She's like, I want to play at Budokan. It's my dream. And
Sure.
So when those things happen, it's big, you know, even bigger than other things that should be bigger. But anyway, having that behind us, I was able to really be straight and not pull any punches. Like you said, I uncovered everything, all the stuff that I did that wasn't so cool, and all the stuff that everyone else did that wasn't so cool. And I also said all the cool things that everyone did, which thankfully far outweigh any uncool stuff. I mean, you don't want to stay in a band for 10 years if things aren't cool. And I'll just go on record and say it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. But within any experience, like Megadeth especially, you're in a bubble and you see the band members in a more intimate way than you do even your own family. You're not with your family 24 hours a day, 11 months out of the year, in bathrooms and dressing rooms and hotels and gigs and everywhere. So it's a really deep relationship. So things are going to happen. There's going to be drama. And so it was kind of fun to think what fans are going to find interesting and put that in the book. And there's a lot of petty nonsense in there as well. And I found that quite entertaining to write because it's not the most important things, but I think it humanizes everybody. And, petty little things that we would bicker about and things that blew up into big arguments and things that didn't, things that went well, things that didn't went well. It's flat. There's no agenda. There's no leaning left or right on it. It's just exactly how I saw it. And I think it's a very big, long, fun part of the book and will answer a lot of questions for the fans of Megadeth and myself in that band because, as you said, I've always been very, not necessarily guarded, but not very sparing. Not a lot of private information out there. So it was kind of fun to think of the things that definitely nobody knows and definitely, probably the band guys all remember for sure, but not things that have been in interviews and stuff like that.
Yeah, the one thing that I was really surprised about. I mean, you go album through album, album to album with Megadeth in that period of the book, but the one record that is the often maligned Megadeth record was the last one you made, Risk. And you talk about that, and one of the things I did not know at that time is what you were going through at that time. You talk about in detail this debilitating panic attack that you had, and that the only thing that you could do beyond mustering the energy to get on stage was you would have to take these hour-long baths and eat grilled chicken sandwiches. It's nuts. Did you ever get to the bottom, of what triggered that? Because that was next level debilitating the way it comes off in the book. I mean, people I know have panic attacks. The next day they're better. In a few hours they're better. But this thing really set you off for a long time. Was it just being in the band? What did you ever get to the root of what caused it?
Yeah, it set me off for a whole year. And it was after I had announced that I quit the band to the band. It wasn't announced in public or anything, but it was announced to the band. So I was going to finish out the tour we were on. And then once the tour was going to take a break, I was going to leave and they were going to find another guy. But, all the gory details are in there. But to sum it up, I didn't know it was a panic attack at the time, but it was a monster. I'd never had any issues with any kind of mental issues or psychological issues or health issues at all. Suddenly, I was in the ER and I was just freaking out completely. I couldn't move. I was screaming. I was shouting. It's out of nowhere, dude. It was just out of nowhere. I had no idea what it was. And I had to figure out a way to continue the tour in that condition, and I couldn't walk without two people carrying me around. I'm cutting out a lot of the details here because it's impossible to shorten it, but I was on so many antidepressant things and muscle relaxers and all kinds of different drugs just to keep me from going completely mad. And then I found that if I ate these grilled chicken sandwiches, that sort of helped. And the only thing other that helped was staying in a hot bathtub for hours on end. So what I would do, it was such a horrible thing, and I cringe when I think about it because I put the staff, the band, and everyone around me in such a horrible situation, but I wasn't going to do anything without being in a friggin' bathtub all day and being shuttled around like a friggin' diva. People would take me to eat, and I would like go off on the waiters and stuff, and it's so unlike me. I was a completely different person. And, I remember saying, I put this in the book, I remember saying I was at a Japanese restaurant, and there was like Santana's music was playing in the background, and I started screaming. I'm like,
"Oh yeah,
can I swear on this program? I can."
Yes.
On this radio program.
Yeah.
I was eating. It was like a sushi restaurant. I'm like, okay, there's probably protein here. Good, I can eat this. As soon as I heard like some of Santana's music in the background, I'm like, what the fuck is this? This is a Japanese restaurant. Why are they playing Mexican music in here? What the fuck is this? And I was screaming this at the top of my lungs, banging down on the table. Wasabi and ginger was flying all over the place. I was just such a horrible human being to everyone around me. And it was just so out of character, but it was in that moment, that's what it was, dude. I mean, it was that. And what really sucked about this was if I did stay in the bathtub all day and eat nothing but protein things and chicken sandwiches, the second I got on stage, I was normal. I could fucking play. I could play music. And then when I got off the stage, I was a wreck again. I was a complete wreck. So like the guys in the band and the people on the staff, I'm like, what the fuck's wrong with this guy? He's totally fine. He's acting like he's sick and shit. And so they probably hated my guts, and rightfully so. I don't blame anyone. And, it's you don't want to talk about this stuff, but it's your autobiography. But that's what it was, dude. It was that. I didn't want to cause people problems, but I was there. That was happening. And it was just, I was not a good person for the entire time. And it took me like 8 months after the tour stopped and I got off the tour completely vegging out in my house. I didn't play guitar. I didn't listen to music. All I did was like take these antidepressant things and sit in the bathtub and eat fucking chicken sandwiches. That's what I did for like 8 months until I started to see a little improvement and become normal again. So this is the first time I ever talked about that awful stuff in the book. Yeah. And I talked about the psychological reasons for that in there, which is too detailed to talk about now, but they figured out kind of what it was, and I kind of made peace with it. And, I got back to myself around 2001, but that whole year was just, I feel sorry for everyone around me, and I don't blame anyone at all for not forgiving me, and I was not a cool person. And, I'm just glad I came out of it. I thought that I was going to turn into one of those, the lyrics in the Ramones songs, where they're talking about DDT, lobotomy and all that stuff. And right. I thought I was going to be one of those people, in the rubber rooms. That's what I saw in my future. That's what I felt like. And I'm just so grateful that I came out of it, but it took a real long time. Real long.
Yeah.
Crazy stuff.
There's so much. Yeah, there's so much stuff in here. You cover Dave, Dave's going into rehab and what you guys had to do as a band around him. That's in there. There's light stuff in there, like, like you said, the petty bickering, like arguing about your hair length or the size of your hair. It's just like stuff that I tell people all the time, having been in the business for decades. I'm like, you have no idea some of the shit that goes on. So when I see artists pull back the curtain on that, and it's just like, yeah, man, I mean, I know that goes on, but a lot of fans don't. It's a phenomenal read. I only got about 5 minutes left before I got to end the show, but the book is available now in the U.S., right? Dreaming Japanese, you can get it here?
Yes, it's available everywhere. Yeah.
Are you selling it at shows?
Not selling it at shows, but if you have one, I'll be signing it at the VIPs. And there's a couple of book signings. There's one in New Jersey on February 3rd at Bookends, and there's another one coming up, which I don't know the date offhand, which will be on all my social media.
And we should mention, everybody,
I want people to come out on the tour. I mean, the tour is the main thing. You know, in my last minutes here, I'll appeal to that. This tour is my band from Japan, and those who know, you know. It's my band from Japan, and this band is going to outshine me. They're going to blow me away every single night. You might go to the show to see me, but you'll walk away remembering them. I guarantee it. And you'll walk away from the show feeling extremely uplifted and ready to face whatever's in front of you. And you're not going to walk away saying, wow, he's a great guitar player with a lot of talent. No, you're not going to say that. You're going to say, oh, my God, I had so much fun. I'd never had this much fun at an instrumental show, you know, with a guitar player. I had never had this much fun at this type of thing before. And that's just thanks to the Japanese spirit that we're going to bring to you, and the really, really unique talents and the fun of my band. So go to my website and get any tickets that are left. I think a couple shows are sold out. The New York area is all sold out, but there's a lot left in the rest of the country. So I really, really can't wait to see everybody out there. And as always, thanks for your support. It means the world to me and keeps me coming back.
Well, MartyFriedman.com is the website. The tour starts officially on Saturday in Vegas, and I'm going to be there, dude. I'll be in Vegas on Saturday, so I'm going to come see you. And
killer!
I know Varney. I know Varney lives in Vegas. I hang with Varney all the time, so I'm sure he's going to come out, and he's a big part of your story. So it should be a fun night there at Vamped. Looking forward to that. Yeah. So Saturday in Vegas is where it starts. You might also see Marty with John at NAMM it's more of an industry thing, but it's some public stuff going on there as well. So check out the dates. I'm looking at them right now on your site. Again, it's MartyFriedman.com, and we're wrapping up at the Whiskey in LA on February 22nd. You can get all your info there. And again, the new album, which is killer, we should mention, is called Drama. That's out now. And I'll tell the audience, man, because I can attest to what you're saying, because I've seen your band play a few times when you've come over recently, and the band is phenomenal. You let everybody play, and some of my audience, and I get this, it's like, oh, you're going to go to an instrumental guitar show. It's just going to be like, you kind of get numb to it after a while. The way you deliver it, the way the band delivers it, it's fun, it's interesting, it's different. It keeps everybody engaged. You don't have to be a guitar nerd to enjoy it. And that's something, even though I am a guitar nerd, I don't play, but I still appreciate the way you bring it. It's a really cool show.
Well, you summed it up better than I could. I appreciate that. And that's our biggest goal, man. And you absolutely do not need to be a guitar nerd, because we do not put the guitar nerd stuff in there. It's all about entertaining people, and you'll see. Those who know, and we can't wait to see you all out there.
Yeah, and I should mention one other thing on the book. So for people that don't know, like we touched on, you've lived in Japan for like the last 20 years. You still do. And you've carved out a huge career there playing with Japanese music and different genres of music, and you're a huge career as a TV presenter and host and all of that. And a lot of that's covered in the book as well. So when people are like, well, what does Marty do in Japan? If you read the book, you're going to get insights on all of that, because there's a lot of detail on that as well. Hey, man, it's great catching up with you. I look forward to seeing you in Vegas on Saturday. I'll hit you with a text or whatever. Maybe we can get together before if you have time. And safe travels out there. Good luck with everything at NAMM as well.
Thank you very much, Eddie. I'll see you in a few days.
All right, man. Sounds good.
Thanks a lot, brother. Take care.
See you, man. Bye-bye. There he goes, Marty Friedman, everybody. Just spent about 45 minutes chatting with him. I'm telling you, the book is a great read. Even if you're like, I'm not the big, I don't really know that much, and big Marty Friedman guy, whatever. It's just a fascinating story. You got a guy here who, went through everything in Megadeth, and he points all that out, the highs, the lows, the Risk album, which is a controversial record where they quote unquote sold out, and what went on with that and his take on that. And it's very candid. He talks about he should have gotten more publishing credit. He said he should have been the lead guitar player. Mustaine should have just played rhythm. He feels that Mustaine is one of the best rhythm guitar players he's ever seen. Doesn't think he's a great lead player. He felt like it should have been more of a Metallica situation where it's, Mustaine singing, playing rhythm guitar like James does, and a lead guitar player. But Mustaine wanted to play dual lead guitar, and that's the way it was his band, you know? It's very honest from his perspective as to how it all went down and how the good, the bad, what should have been. Talks about, actually, we all know there was great competition between Metallica and Megadeth with Dave's history with Metallica, and that Megadeth doing stuff on albums like Euthanasia and Countdown to Extinction. I mean, they were literally told with a song like Trust, hey, why not write something like Enter Sandman? You guys need your Enter Sandman, your crossover song. All that's in there. And if you love that kind of stuff like I do, it's really, really interesting. And again, his career, since he moved to Japan for 20 years, is huge over there. I mean, he's on billboards. It's huge. And that is a huge undertaking. He had to learn the language because you don't get anywhere over there. I don't think they even let you live there unless you can speak and read the language, which is very difficult. But he can. He's super fluent in Japanese. When I was over there with him and we went to lunch a couple months ago, I mean, he punched in notes in my iPhone so that I could show the taxi drivers where to take me in Japanese. So he was very helpful in that way. But, just pick up and chase that whole Japanese culture that he loved and to become, a citizen there and live there is it's a big thing. And it's all detailed throughout the book. So that's an interesting part of it as well. All right. Well, man, busy show today. We got a lot of news in. Just spent 45 talking to Marty. Again, tomorrow, Mark McGrath of Sugar Ray scheduled. Thursday, Shavo from System of a Down scheduled. So we got plenty more to come, live every day, 3 Eastern, noon Pacific, on Faction Talk. Of course, anytime you want on the app. All right, rest in peace, John Sykes. We will continue talking about John, I'm sure. And whenever we get calls, and we'll get into some phone calls in the next few days, and certainly on Friday, I'm sure you guys will have some thoughts about John as well. Still reeling from that news. All right, everybody, you guys have a great rest of your Tuesday. Thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.